Hey guys, and welcome back to the Modern Housewife podcast. So today I wanted to do an episode on a couple things that we are teaching our kids about money and basically how to create a abundant money mindset from a very young age with children, and also what the Bible says about creating wealth, giving back, investing. And also just generally what it says about the right money mindset. And so I'm so excited for today's episode because it's something that Doug and I take super seriously in our household. For instance, we don't let our kids use the word the phrase that's too expensive. We obviously are entrepreneurs ourselves, so we want to try and create and mold little children that are free to do, once they're older, whatever they want according to God's will and their passions, but also really enable them to seek taking their future and their finances into their own hands by hopefully being entrepreneurs themselves by first learning through other people. And so how do we do that? How do we encourage them to pursue wealth in a biblical way? We're going to chat about that today. I mentioned in a few episodes back that my dad really instilled in my sister and I a strong money mindset from, I swear, once we popped out the womb. My dad was a born and bred entrepreneur. His dad was an entrepreneur. His dad's dad was. It's like we come from a whole line. We're very blessed in that way because my dad and his entire family think completely opposite from the masses, not in a higher than mighty type of way, just in a fact. The way that they think about money is so interesting, so enlightening. And so growing up around regular people that work 8 to 5 jobs, my mom had an 8 to 5 job. It was always very conflicting to me because I saw how everyone else thought. And then I was also at the same time being fed information from my dad in one ear that totally contradicted everything that everyone else was telling me. And also just what I was seeing from my friends and their families and how they lived out life according to their beliefs. And so I want to talk about how my dad taught my sister and I. We both run 7-figure businesses, created these businesses, both of us, during when our kids had their quiet time or nap time. And so we've been able to do interesting things with our life from a relatively young age. I'm 31, she's 41. And I really think it's because of obviously God's will for our life, but also what my dad taught us. So I'm going to talk to you guys about what his practices were and his beliefs. And also we're going to touch on the law of attraction. Is it biblical? The abundance mindset versus scarcity mindset and all the basic things, but how we practically impart our, knowledge into our kids every single day, all the time. So the reason why I really wanted to do this episode is because I get so fired up about this topic because oh my gosh, it happens everywhere. Just coming into contact with people that have scarcity mentalities and think that it's hard to create wealth and that it's just an absolute nightmare to even talk about money. And people that I come in contact with, they work 8 to 5 soul-sucking jobs. Now, a lot of people come down to me because they think, well, Haley, what if someone has a calling to be a nurse or a doctor or a teacher? From my perspective and from my experience when talking to literal other adults my entire life, even if they had a calling, if I would have asked most people, do you want to be doing this right now? 99% of them would say, heck to the no. I'd rather be doing X, Y, Z, pursuing freedom in another way. Even if they have a calling for it, they can, pursue their passion in a different way other than working for someone else. So again, people have soul-sucking jobs they don't like their bosses or some of their coworkers. They wish they could live life on their own terms, but they will say to themselves, this is what it is. I should be lucky. I should be content, or I just have to do this to provide for my family. And there's no other option. That's what gets me going the most. When people think that there's no other option, because if you think that, you believe that, then you're never going to find another option. You're going to find reasons as to why there's no options. So that's the first thing. Most people are just unhappy with their lives. And I don't want my kids to be one of them. It starts right now. Also, on the flip side is from most of my, not most, but a lot of my experiences, people are just naturally greedy humans, okay? I'm naturally greedy human. You guys, even if you're not willing to admit it, we have that propensity to be greedy and to hoard things. Even if we're not I'm going to steal her, I don't know, new Louis Vuitton bag or something. If it's not to that extreme, we still have the propensity or the natural inclination to hoard and to save, not in a good way, just in I'm scared that I will have lack in the future and not to give. So for instance, even it started when I was, in college, we would all, and this is so normal if you went to college and you were in any type of group setting, the check would come out. And everyone's like, how can I think into themselves? This wasn't me though, because my dad obviously. And so I wasn't any better. It's just I had my dad's wisdom. So my friends would be thinking, I already know, because they'd say it under their breath or whatever. She paid less than I did. Like, how is that fair? How am I picking up more of the tab than this person? And it starts when you're a child, a teenager, and then it continues on as an adult. So even sometimes in adult settings, I can see people being like, who's going to pick up the tab? Like, this is so expensive. Like, am I going to have to pay more than the rest of them? And it just continues on even into later adulthood. People being scarce and people being greedy. And so another thing that I find that people battle with is they, again, are scarce in the fact that they don't want to give excess. So they don't want to tithe. They don't want to give to charities because they feel like, I'll wait until I make more. And I've had problems with that in the past, or I've struggled with thinking now is not the right time to tithe because I'm not making hardly any money, And so I understand. Or the kicker, this is like one that I'm seeing a lot recently, is that when like elderly people or anybody, like if anyone dies in a family, you'll see the siblings, like they were once friends, they turn into brutal enemies because they're all fighting over things in the will. There's literally never been a time where I've seen, I'm not even kidding, I'm not being dramatic, I have seen lots of, grandparents pass away, or the last of the grandparents, and there's never been a time in my life where I see the children be cordial with one another. You guys can let me know. I hope that is just my case, but I have seen siblings that they loved each other for their entire life, and they hang out and they go to brunch. All of a sudden, they don't speak for like the next 10 to 20 years because she got more in the will than I did, or she took more when I wasn't looking. Like, it is insane, like the amount of grief that happens when parents die. It's so sad. And so I just don't want my kids to turn out like the masses with the negative mentality around money, because it's just going to make them miserable, depressed human beings, truly. Not everybody's like this. There's a scale, some people aren't as greedy as another, but I want them to be free from anxiety that money doesn't grow on trees, that type of phrase. I don't want them to ever think that. I want them to think that it does grow on trees and that it's everywhere. Hey guys, I interrupt this podcast to let you know that we have a brand new YouTube masterclass. So this masterclass training is about a little over an hour long, and it's a free online training. You guys just have to register for a spot. I'll leave the link down below, and you can learn the ins and outs of everything I've learned from being on YouTube for nearly a decade. So all the mistakes, all the failures, and everything that can basically turn a new YouTuber into a full-time YouTuber within 6 months or less. I know that sounds crazy because a lot of you guys have probably posted on YouTube, or maybe some of you guys, for over 6 months and you're nowhere near full-time, but it's totally possible with the right mindset, the right strategies, and the right income streams, and also the right growth plan. Okay, so I'm going to talk about how to go viral on YouTube, how to turn it into a full-time business, and I'll do that all throughout this full training. So I will leave the link down below for where you guys can sign up for your time slot to watch that. If you have any questions, let me know, and let's go ahead and get back into the podcast. So I'm going to talk about the top 8 things. I have 8, but I have 800 really in my mind, but the top 8 things that we teach our kids, or that we don't teach our kids that the masses do. So the first one is I'm already teaching both my kids that I have 3 kids. So I have a 6-year-old, a 4-year-old, and a 2-year-old. Obviously the 2-year-old doesn't know what I'm saying, but for the 6-year-old and 4-year-old, this comes up a lot. All of these come up at least once a day when we're out and about, when we're at Target, when we are buying a Girl Scout cookie. We talk openly, and I also homeschool, so I'm with them a lot. But the first one comes up a lot, and that is, it is our duty as Christians, as believers, as people, to make money. Make a lot of money, okay? That doesn't mean that we're greedy. It doesn't mean money is evil and that we should stay away from it and be poor, because that's not going to help anybody. But it's our duty to make money so we can give it to other people. And now this is the number one thing my dad taught me. He taught me that he would say, now he is very blunt, and I'm not going to say this openly. This is not what I'm saying. My dad says, it is selfish to choose to remain poor or stuck at the same income level. Now, a lot of people would hear that and be like, that is a horrible thing to say. And it's true. It is horrible, okay? It's innately horrible, the surface level of it. But basically what he's saying is that if you choose to be poor, there are people out there that literally live in Uganda. Like, they don't even know of another life. I just saw like a picture from I think it's like the History Photographed Instagram account where they found this new tribe in the Amazon rainforest. They've never been outside of the walls of the tribe. It's on the Instagram account. You should look it up. Look it up. It's so interesting. But they've never been outside of the walls of the tribe, and they don't even know another way. Like, that is not what my dad's talking about. He's talking about typically where we live in America, everyone's got an iPhone. Even like a lot of people that have no money, they somehow have an iPhone. It's crazy. Or they have a cell phone, they have access to the internet. If they're aware that there, are different ways to make money, but they choose to remain in the victim mentality, which he's super against, then it's a self-serving belief. Like, beliefs can be self-serving, and that's what he's saying. Okay. So don't come at me for like, laziness is poorness. You have to understand where he's coming from. Okay. And so let me read a couple Bible verses that really I focus on a lot, because I know a lot of people will say, like, Doug has taken thousands of hours worth of sales calls for high ticket items for our other business. And he'll, like, anytime a Christian comes on a call, they will say, I don't really need money that much, but they are not doing well financially. He knows, because they are open about how much money they're making, and they're like, I don't need money, and they'll basically allude to the fact that money is the root of all evil, but they're taking that verse, in my opinion, they're distorting the verse. Okay, so let's go and look at what the Bible says in case you're interested. Proverbs 10:4, laziness leads to poverty, hard work makes you rich. Proverbs 13:4, the soul of the lazy man desires and has nothing, but the soul of the diligent shall be made rich. Another one, I love this one. This one I write everywhere. Because this is hard for me. Do not love sleep or you will grow poor. Stay awake and you will have food to spare. So clearly God wants you. Now, you guys can look up the verses your own and read the context on your own, but from my perspective, he wants you to work really hard and not be poor so you can help people. And there's other verses talking about that as well. And so that's why I tell my kids, listen, guys, it's our duty to make a lot of money. Money is not evil. It grows on trees. It's super abundant. It's everywhere. And I'll get to that in a minute, what we tell them about that in practical terms and practical experiences. But yeah, so it's our duty so we can give it to other people. Like, if you don't make a lot of money, you just can help yourself. There's little you can do for other people if you don't have money. You can do a lot. Obviously, you can start movements and help people that in your inner circle. But if you want to make huge moves and change, a lot of people's lives, you need money to do it. It's interesting because we were actually listening to our pastor's sermon last week, and he said he was doing a talk on this exact thing, which kind of like spurred the idea for it, about wealth and mindset. And he's all about like the things that I'm saying. And he says that for almost every church, if not every church, the majority of the money and the funds, you could already know where I'm going with this, that come from the church come from wealthy people, because they make the biggest impact. They have the most money. And yeah, anyways, they're diligent and they have money to give. So that's the first one. We have to do it. It's our duty. The second one is so like all of these are really against everybody, but the second one is huge. And that is, don't look for deals. My dad, he struggled in certain businesses. He didn't grow up with the internet, to help him. If he did, he would have been mega wealthy, but he was like the traditional knock on doors type of entrepreneur. And he ran a business with his sister for a long time. So because of that, my mom, I mentioned this in like the business podcast I did a couple of weeks ago about how we run our 7-figure business, how we created that business. If you're interested, I'll link that down below. But basically, my mom supported my dad in his dreams and his endeavors and his businesses their entire marriage. And now that they're older, obviously they retired. But my dad didn't always have the money to not look for deals. Okay. We struggled a lot. We came from a middle-class family. And so he would tell me, listen, I'm going to use this coupon for Carl's Jr. Chicken Stars right now. But remember, you don't look for deals. Like, you're not going to be doing this because, he placed upon me that I'll be successful and I'll be better than him, whatever, like a good dad does. And so he would use coupons, but he wasn't like savagely clipping coupons, putting them in like these binder notebooks, OG 90s parent days, right? Nowadays, people do this through like certain apps, or like we'll see, we live in Orange County, right? And so there's like new restaurants all the time giving away free things and like hype all the time. There's a lot of people here. It's urban. So we'll see a huge line like down the street into like, I don't even know, another shopping center almost into the parking lot. We're like, what is this line for? We find out it's to get $5 off. My dad would absolutely scoff, never find yourself in that line. And he would scold me. And I wasn't even doing it. And so never look for deals. For instance, one time as a kid, I told my dad, hey, like my friend, she gets a water cup at Chipotle and my friend's probably not gonna be watching this, and she put Sprite in it and she doesn't pay for the water. Like, what do you think about that? He was like, that is horrible. Like, never do that. That is cutting corners and that's wanting something for nothing. All the phrases, like baby boomers say, or at least my dad. And so he never wanted me to look for deals. So anyways, practically for our kids, if they say, look, mommy, that's on sale. Really, it's our 6-year-old because she can read the word sale, right? It's like cheaper or whatever. I'm like, nope, there's no such thing as cheaper. There's no such thing as like a sale. It's all marketing. Don't pretend like you're getting a deal, okay? You're not getting a deal. You're just not. And so we don't look for deals. We don't wait for Black Friday shopping. We don't kill ourselves to get $100 off a TV. If we want something, we buy it. Clearly, a lot of people would say, well, that's because you have more money than the rest of us. No, it's because we've always had this mentality. I had this mentality when I was dirt broke. It doesn't start when you're wealthy. It starts when you are trying to, change your money mindset, or when you choose for it to start.
All right, you guys. So I'm editing this podcast and I realized I didn't actually explain why I don't allow any type of looking for a deal or coupon clipping. And that is simply because I want my children to really attach themselves to the identity of being a wealthy person. And so this goes deep and, getting kind of weird and nuancy here, and there's so many layers to this, the abundance mentality. You guys can look it up if you are new to it, but basically it all starts with who you see yourself as. If you see yourself as somebody that is never going to make any more money, where money is so hard to come by, where it stresses everybody out, the idea of even thinking about money gives you anxiety and gives you the cold sweats, then obviously you are not going to find, and this is where the energetic match comes in, which I won't really touch on today because it's honestly too layered, but this is honestly where you're not going to be open. The universe is not going to open, or God is not going to open up opportunities to you to show you how you can make more money. And so when you're only focusing on lack, when you're only focusing on scarcity by coupon clipping and filling your precious time with doing things that really disables you from making more money, then you're only going to ever have lack. And so I don't want my kids doing things that is the opposite of creating abundance. I hope that makes sense. And so obviously when they are much older, I will go into detail on this, but basically what I'm going to be telling them, I'm not sure the age yet, they're only 4 and 6, but eventually I'll say, okay, so what does a wealthy person look like? What are their daily habits? Do they wake up every morning looking like a slob? Are they fit mentally and physically? Do they spend their time coupon clipping, or what do they spend their time on? And so once you know how a wealthy person behaves, hopefully by reading about wealthy people and studying their success habits, then you obviously want to start embodying that wealthy person, or the person of success. And, wealthy is triggering to some people, that word, but whatever that means to you, a successful person, successful wife, successful father, successful child, then you will start to become that person because you have the identity first, and that's how it starts.
So the third one I already sort of mentioned in the intro, but we never use the word expensive. So typically when I say never, I'm like, okay, 90%. No, like literally we never will use the word expensive. And if it slips out, which it doesn't, I will just go off. I'm like, nope, didn't mean it. That's not how I know that. I said that wrong, because I never want my kids to think that something's too expensive. And so like, for instance, they're with other kids, right? And they'll say, well, the neighbor kid or my friend said that this was too expensive. Like, we can't have that. She can't have that because her mom said it's too expensive. And I'm like, well, and I say nicely, everyone, earns different income. It's not that I'm like rude about another person's family, but I will say nothing's too expensive. They just don't have the money for it, or sometimes I will say, like a long time ago, they used to want a lot of Elsa stuff. I seriously hate Frozen, the whole thing. But a long time ago, we used to let them 2 years ago watch Elsa stuff, Frozen movies, right? And so like they wanted this water horse knock. If you're a mom, you know what I'm talking about and you've watched Frozen, but this dumb water horse, which looks evil. I hate it. And so the thing was like $50 at Target. And I let them pick out a toy. I can't remember the situation because it was so long ago. But my daughter Annabelle's like, I want the water horse, the water nene. That's what she says, the knock nene. I'm like, okay. I wanted to say that thing is ridiculously expensive. Like, no, because I'm not paying $50 for a little toy horse. They drive up the prices, right? But instead I'll say that is overpriced and it's not worth what it's created for. Okay. So I won't say it's expensive, because if you start saying things are expensive, it really just tells your kids that they will never be able to earn enough money to buy that thing. You want them to think $1,000 is not a lot of money. That doesn't mean that they're lazy. It doesn't mean that they're spoiled. It doesn't mean that they're getting like $1,000 gifts left and right. It just means that they can have it if they work hard enough for it, right? So that is something we don't do. Okay, number 4 is we teach our kids that we don't work for other people other than to learn. So I'm not against like working for other people, having a boss to learn information, but we sort of teach them and condition them already that we are innovators, we are creators, we create our own future through God's will and purpose for our lives, but ultimately we want you to be entrepreneurs. Now, a lot of parents will say, let them be what they want. Like, don't, I think if you encourage school, if you encourage college, if you encourage being a teacher, go be a teacher, go be a lawyer, go be a doctor, go be a secretary, be what you want. You're basically saying, and you're encouraging, you're pushing that agenda on your kids. So a lot of those people will say, well, you're pushing the agenda of entrepreneurship. Well, you're pushing the opposite agenda. Everyone's pushing an agenda, right? We all have opinions. So I think push the one that you feel like is best for your kids, okay? That is most aligned with what God wants you to do, which in our opinion is working for yourself, working really hard with what you have, and the time that you have. If you're a wife, obviously you guys know my thoughts on that based off the last podcast, not overtaking your husband, all those types of things. We talked about biblical submission, but working with what you have in the time frame that you have with the knowledge that you have and being an entrepreneur. And so, yes, we will absolutely push entrepreneurship on them because you tell your kids what you think is right. You're not going to tell them to go race a motorcycle with no helmet. I'm not going to tell my kids to go work for someone else at a soul-sucking job because they might like it. I'm going to steer them in the right direction that I feel is the right. So that's like polarizing. But okay, number 5. This is something that we just started doing. So this is like a long-term thing, but earn money to spend the money that you earn through your investments, not through the actual money you earn. So like when you go and babysit, I mean, they're gonna spend it because I want them to understand how this works. But when you go and babysit, you can go and spend the money right away that you get from babysitting, or you can invest that in a mutual fund. That's so boring, right? Probably not at that age, but you guys understand. And you're basically going to then spend the money that you make off the mutual fund. So probably won't start at babysitting age, but what we are going to start doing is because our eldest just turned 6. I think maybe when she turns 7 or 8, like a little longer, a little more older, we will double whatever money she gives us into a savings account. So if she earns like $20, we will give her $20 only if she puts it in her savings account or really an investment account. So she can understand that can make more money. Number 6 may seem simple and easy. Okay. This may seem that everybody does this because it's the good thing to do, but I think a lot of parents' actions are opposite. So number 6 is you can have anything you want in life if it aligns with God's will, obviously, but really the focus is on you have more than enough to succeed. So parents will say, what do you think money grows on trees? Like you can't have that $50 shirt. Like those little sayings and those little, whatever they are, I don't know. They just cut a kid's, They cut a kid's ability to be a dreamer down 100 million %. And they do a lot of other things to a kid because it teaches the child that money is hard to earn and that they could never afford that shirt. So there's just a way to go about it and it's also something I have to do in my own life. Okay. When I start to say, dude, why is that? I don't even know. Like I could go to the grocery store and see like a block of cheese for $100. Sometimes there's weird things that are overpriced or just not expensive. See, I almost said it again. Overpriced or see, $100 block of cheese to me is expensive. But it's not. It's just a money mindset, right? I can't say that. I can't. So if I see something that is a lot of money to me at the time of how much I'm earning, right? It's all relative. At the grocery store, I will say out loud, even in my own head, right? Or out loud to myself, I'll say, that is too much money for that. Like, what are these people doing, right? My kids hear that. And so I have to be abundant myself for my kids to be abundant as well. I can't be scarce. I can't hoard things. So something that we do as a family, and we've all kind of like come together, me and my husband, and have decided to do is we are going to give a lot in front of our kids all the time. Now, this is something that a lot of people want to do, but they can't, or they feel like they can't, which leads me to number 7. Give. Don't be stingy, especially in front of your kids. I know this is like a kid-centered podcast, like teaching them. You shouldn't be stingy anyways, even if you have lack. Even when I didn't have a lot of money, I still paid for my friends because I didn't want, my dad taught me like, you don't want to split the check. You really just don't. You just want to pay for someone else if you can. Sometimes you can't always do that, but if you sort of can swing it, always pay for someone else if you're taking them out to lunch or dinner. And so we do that, and the kids see us paying for everybody all the time and giving money, and we, are showing them how much we're giving and how this all works. Not to be like, higher than mighty, obviously, like I said, but so that they can understand that giving should happen all the time and you don't even flinch. And if you can't give financially, you can give obviously with your time. And we're showing them that through different ways, doing different charitable organizations and being a part of those as well. Okay, so the last one, number 8 actually, is huge. Creating wealth is simply a choice. Unless, again, you're in the Amazon rainforest or Uganda or somewhere where they don't even know what's going on. We understand, and we tell our kids we are so blessed to live in America, so blessed for these things. We are privileged, right? But with what you are dealing with right now in your life, creating wealth is a choice. It is simply a choice. It is not hard. Money is everywhere. It grows on trees. It grows on houses. It grows on billboards. It grows on the internet. But it's only a choice if you adhere to that belief. If you choose to go the victim mentality, which people hate when I talk about this, but if you choose to go to the victim mentality mindset where the government's not helping you enough, your parents didn't give you enough, or they didn't teach you enough, or you didn't go to college, you didn't get that opportunity, so you're not as smart as everybody else, or you can't speak very well, you have a stutter, or X, Y, Z, it doesn't even matter what it is, you're going to adhere to the belief that it is hard to create wealth. And so we want our kids to believe that they can have as much money as they want, obviously according to God's will, and that it's easy to acquire it if they choose it to be easy. So that is pretty much it for today's podcast on a couple ways we are teaching our kids about money mindset. Leave a review. It would mean the absolute world to me if you guys are getting any value from this. If you have any ideas as to what I should do podcasts about in the future, I would love to hear them down below if you're listening on or watching on YouTube or listening wherever you listen to. And yeah, I will see you guys in my next one. Bye, guys.